1 Thessalonians. To wait for his Son from heaven. A layman looks at Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. Keith Gorgas 2020. 1 Thessalonians 3 Part 1. Therefore, when we could no longer endure it, we thought it best to be left behind, alone at Athens, and we sent Timothy, our brother and God's fellow worker in the gospel of Christ, to strengthen and encourage you for the benefit of your faith, so that no one would be disturbed by these afflictions. For you yourselves know that we have been destined for this. Paul and his helpers had longed to visit the Thessalonians, but as we read earlier, on more than one occasion Satan had hindered them. Finally, Paul could stand it no longer, and sent Timothy to see how they were doing. God uses our emotions to push us into doing things we might not have thought of doing. While Paul, in writing to Timothy, refers to him as his son in the faith, when writing to others about him uses the terms our brother and God's fellow worker in the gospel of Christ. There is no sense of hierarchy here. Timothy was sent to strengthen and encourage the Thessalonians for the benefit of their faith. We don't want to just lead people to Christ and forget about them. A true shepherd's heart will look diligently to their edification and growth. Paul didn't reserve dominion over them. He didn't refer to them as my flock, but was happy to share the work with other like-minded brothers. One plants, another waters, but it is God who gives the increase. The apostle didn't want them to be disturbed by the afflictions he encountered. No doubt some of the false teachers who desire to usurp a place of leadership among them pointed to the difficulties Paul encountered as proof that he was worthless vagabond. Look at all the trouble in Paul's life, they may say. It shows that God is displeased with him. The truth is that any who undertake to serve the Lord will encounter satanic opposition. Paul said we were destined to this. For even when we were with you, we kept telling you in advance that we were going to suffer affliction, and so it happened, as you know. Paul warned them in advance that this would happen. He knew that afflictions awaited him as he left their presence, and this should come as no surprise to them. For this reason, when I could no longer endure it, I also sent to find out about your faith, for fear that the tempter might have tempted you, and our labor would be for nothing. Even as they cared for him and longed for his well-being, the Thessalonian saints weighed heavily on Paul's heart. It's wonderful that Paul had Timothy to send in his stead to be with them and help them. It speaks highly of young Timothy that Paul had the confidence in him to send him on his behalf. But now that Timothy has come to us from you, and has brought us good news of your faith and love, and that you always think kindly of us, longing to see us just as we also long to see you, for this reason, brothers and sisters, in all our distress and affliction we were comforted about you through your faith. For now we really live, if you stand firm in the Lord. Timothy had returned with a good report that brought joy and relief to the apostle. He spoke of their love and faith, and that they cared deeply for the evangelists who had led them to Christ. Timothy conveyed how they longed to see them, even as Paul and his helpers longed to see the Thessalonians. It brought comfort to their hearts to hear of these believers' faith growing. It gave them a shot in the arm, and a breath of fresh air. Paul says, "For now we can really live, if you stand firm in the Lord." We may not realize it, but as we continue on in the Lord, we are an encouragement to those who have labored over us in the Lord. As a boy growing up, a young man in our town took responsibility for the Sunday school, and instilled in me the habit of reading and memorizing the scriptures. He kept a chart of the books of the Bible we read, and each week would add to it. As I grew into a man with a family, he continued to watch over my soul and we would have many personal conversations. Although I moved from that town many years ago, we have kept in contact, and recently he sent me a note that said, "I'm happy you are going on with the Lord." This brother had invested years in my spiritual development, and it matters to him how I finish my course.